Are you kidding me? What's with all this yammering? What's the point? Chengpeng angrily threw the mouse from his hand. The mouse rolled a few times and ended up under the bed. What's the point? It's you. Once you come home, you're either on your phone or the computer. You don't care about the kids at all. Don't you have any sense of responsibility? Seeing her husband's actions, Suhi's anger was further stoked and her voice raised by several decibels. Kids, kids. As if you're the only one with kids. Aren't all mothers taking care of their kids? Why is it so hard for you? Chengpeng felt irritated hearing Suhi's complaints. All she knew was to complain all day long, which made life really dull. Suhi became even angrier. What do you mean by all mothers? Why don't you look at how other fathers behave? Since the kid was born, have you ever cared for him? You promised a month ago that you'd take him to a playground. Have you ever fulfilled it? Normally when I ask you to play toys with him, you would always put in minimal effort. When he cries or throws tantrums, you don't even bother finding out why or comforting him, but would scold him instead. As a father, you are simply a child's nightmare. Nightmare. It is this nightmare that provides food, clothing, and other necessities for you guys. If you think I'm not good enough, you can get lost. Chengpeng kicked the stool near his foot and walked towards the door. I can't even have a peaceful weekend. With that remark, Chengpeng stormed out of the room and slammed the door shut. Suhi stared at the messy room and started crying again. Suhi could never have imagined that people could change so quickly. Her husband, who was completely obedient to her before marriage, had turned into this shape just 2 or 3 years after marriage. Suhi even doubted if everything before was just a dream. Suhi met Chengpeng at a small restaurant in Beijing. That day, thinking about how she was struggling on her own here, she felt both exhausted and lonely. It just so happened that it was payday that day. She planned to treat herself well and think about whether she wanted to stay here. Suhi was eating in the restaurant alone, probably because she was preoccupied. She pointed absent-mindedly at 2 dishes on the menu. It wasn't until the dishes were served that she realized she had carelessly ordered a turtle soup. Although for others, the turtle soup was not expensive, just 189 yuans a serving. But for Suhi at that time, her monthly salary was less than 2,000. Can I return it? Suhi smiled awkwardly, but then waved her hand. Never mind, I was just saying. Ah well, who asked her to be careless? Please enjoy your meal. The waiter smiled elegantly and Suhi felt her heart bleeding. Excuse me, how about giving the turtle soup to me? My friend in the hospital has been craving this soup, but it's too much trouble to make it now. A male student pointed at a small hospital not far away, laughed and interrupted Suhi's meal. Suhi was stunned, looking skeptically at the dark-skinned boy in front of her. Tall and thin, with bright white teeth and sporting a crew cut, he gave off a very refreshing vibe. Please, beautiful lady, help me out. The boy was smiling, his hands in a pleading gesture, his face full of hope. Under some inexplicable impulse, Suhi nodded. What's going on here? The mother-in-law came in from the outside, frowning her eyebrows at the sight of Suhi, who was crying. Suhi kept silent and sat on the bed, holding her son. Mommy, did Daddy not helping out around the house upset you again? The 8-year-old boy touched Suhi's face and asked. Oh, isn't it normal for young couples to quarrel? Don't be angry. I'll talk to him later, said the mother-in-law casually. Suhi knew this was just her way to gloss things over. As expected, after a while, the mother-in-law began to nag. This is what men are like. Just look at your father-in-law and me. We used to fight daily when we were younger, but aren't we doing fine now? Which man does household chores? If they did, why would they marry us women? Suhi sneered. Please don't impose your marital status from your time on me. If you are willing to be exploited by your husband, that's your business. I don't wish to. What's wrong with you? Can't you even take criticism anymore? Why are you venting your anger on me now? The mother-in-law immediately jumped up. Suhi didn't want to argue with the old woman in front of her, who was always suppressing her under the pretense of being good to her, forcing her to become a willing nanny to her son. How dare you? What do you mean by not speaking? Why is your temper so quick now? Can't I even criticize you anymore? The mother-in-law got even more furious seeing Suhi react this way. Suhi could not hold back any longer. What can I possibly say? Before we got married, your family treated me as if I was godlike. After the marriage, I was used like a free maid. Let's talk about you during my confinement. Did you stew soup for me even once? Did you cook once? Have you ever changed Hao's diapers? How many times did you see him before he turned 3? Now the child's grown and you're here to enjoy family time. Do you even have the nerve to let the child call you grandma? You are turning the world upside down. If you don't take care of your own son, who will? When I was in confinement, Chengpeng's grandmother didn't come to take care of me either. The moment I say a few things, you talk back. Do you want to reach for the sky now? Say a few things about me. On what basis? Have I ever drunk your milk or used your money from childhood to adulthood? Did you send me to school or help me find a job? You pretend to care for me, then insult me like I'm a fool. The funny thing is that you've never raised me for a day. If I really stand here and let you scold me, isn't that self-degrading? After He finished speaking, without waiting for her mother-in-law to answer, she pushed her out of the door. She could no longer endure it today. She had had enough of this life. Open the door for me. This is my son's house. Why aren't you letting me in? Her mother-in-law was shouting outside, attracting a crowd of people. No reason. Since it's your son's house, go ask your son for the key. Seeing you annoys me. He didn't want to reason anymore, as being a good person just got her manipulated. Better to be a rogue. The mother-in-law outside the door saw that He was not responding and went away nonchalantly. He touched her son's cheek and let out a sigh. Her son was now her only motivation. He's home was in Hebei, while Chengpeng's was in Hunan. She was a woman married far away from home. The second time He met Chengpeng was at a company gathering. The company was merely a group of clerks doing some advertising work. When He walked in the door, someone stood up and greeted her. By then, almost 2 months had passed since their first meeting. Hello, do you remember me? Chengpeng asked with a smile. He was stunned, but then she remembered him. After the meal, somehow they ended up alone. Chengpeng took the opportunity to send her home and got her phone number. It was then that He found out that the friend who wanted turtle soup was just a lie Chengpeng made up to help her. From then on, He developed a bit of a liking for him. He had no prior romantic experience. Under Chengpeng's passionate pursuit, she quickly surrendered. Bringing breakfast, buying coffee, going to the movies, walking around town, everything seemed too good to be true. Things that were usually normal somehow felt more romantic when done by 2 people. What made He decide to marry Chengpeng was an event after dinner one day. The dinner was pre-arranged, but to her surprise, He was held up because of work. Chengpeng waited for her for 3 whole hours. Finally, when the restaurant had closed, He rushed over apologetically. Chengpeng, who had waited for 3 hours, wasn't angry at all and even showed concern. What will we do now? You won't be able to have your favorite cola chicken wings. Then the 2 had skewers at a street food stall. The weather was hot then, and there were many people eating at the food stalls. He and Chengpeng ordered some skewers at random, hoping to fill up their stomachs quickly. But when the stall owners served their table, a few drunk men from the adjacent table took their food. Buddy, go ahead and eat first. You and your girl can wait, the tattooed man said aggressively. Chengpeng quickly stood up. Brother, my girlfriend has been working all night and she is starving. Maybe you could wait a bit more? He promptly tried to pull Chengpeng's arm. Let it go. It's better to avoid trouble whenever we can. Chengpeng looked at He and sank back down dejectedly. It's my fault for being incapable. The drunk man slapped Chengpeng on the shoulder and started laughing. Bro, your girl looks pretty good. Maybe she can help you earn some money. Before the man could finish his sentence, Chengpeng threw a punch at him. In the end, Chengpeng was beaten half to death by a bunch of men. They only stopped when the police arrived. He, observing Chengpeng lying on the ground, began weeping. Why did you have to do this? He gritted his teeth and said, they can talk about me, but they can't talk about you. After that, their relationship progressed quickly, and they ended up meeting their parents. Chengpeng's parents were, of course, extremely happy. They would offer water and bring fruit plates. Especially Chengpeng's mother, who affectionately called her daughter every few sentences. However, on He's side, it was unanimously opposed. They said it was too far and worried He would suffer. Chengpeng didn't blame He, instead he rented a house near He's home and visited He's family often. He would volunteer for any task, offer help in everything, and even became buddies with He's cousins. He remained firm in her decision. Helplessly, He's parents said, It's your choice. You have to see it through to the end. 3 months later, Suhi tearfully bid farewell to her parents. Without any grand ceremony or many blessings from friends and family, she moved into Chengpeng's house and became his wife. And so, 10 years passed. Suhi transformed from a 20-year-old young girl to a 30-year-old middle-aged woman. From a naive young girl to a destitute woman. From a delicate princess who couldn't lift a hand or shoulder a load, to a free all-around nanny for Chengpeng's family. The real war began with the birth of their son. It's true when they say a child is a litmus test for a family. During her pregnancy, her mother-in-law, who had previously promised to treat her like a biological daughter, became obsessed with guessing the baby's gender. On the surface, she claimed all was fine, but behind closed doors, she got lost in divinations and calendars. Her compassionate husband began to frequently lose his temper over their physical differences or marital affairs. But what could she do? The baby was already conceived. She couldn't mention divorce at this point, could she? Suhi comforted herself, thinking things would get better with a child around. After giving birth, her mother-in-law's promise of helping with postnatal recovery turned into complaints about physical discomfort. She became a backseat driver, not helping at all, poking her nose into everything, like a stirrer of trouble. Her husband, due to the baby's crying and financial problems, began to evade responsibilities and complain more, effectively becoming an absentee manager. After every quarrel, Suhi wanted to rush out of the house, but was always too timid to do so. Where could she go even if she walked out? Neighbors were merely looking for a show. Ever since getting married, she had lost contact with her friends, plus, how could she make any friends in a strange city? Returning to her hometown was not an option either. The journey was too far and the road was filled with ups and downs, not to mention the young breastfeeding infant that kept her rooted in place. Moreover, she didn't want her parents to worry about her anymore. It's not like she hadn't tried to communicate. Chengpeng had promised changes with tears in his eyes, just to appease her momentarily, but he always reverted back to his old ways within 3 days. After many quarrels, Chengpeng would retort, "If you want to stay, stay. If you don't want to, just leave." "But you're not taking the kid." Suhi wanted to storm out, but looking at the child in her arms, she couldn't bear to set her mind to it. Chengpeng just sneered, "I knew you have nowhere to go." And then, with a merry grin, he continued his previous lifestyle. This sort of life, on repeat, caused Suhi to break down multiple times. She felt like she couldn't go on, even contemplated ending her life. Later, thinking about the child, she cried and dismissed the thought. In the end, Suhi became just like millions of other housewives, enduring their lives with suffering and helplessness. "Mom, will Dad argue with you about Grandma when he comes back?" the son asked softly. Suhi gave a bitter smile and hugged her son. And I said, "If Dad and Mom have a fight, whose side would you take?" "Of course, I'd be on Mom's side. Mom treats me the best. Even though Dad sometimes treats me well, in my heart, Mom is always the first," the son said, hugging Suhi's waist. Hearing this, Suhi's tears instantaneously fell. Damn it! Are they bullying us because they think our family doesn't have anyone to stand up for us? Near evening, Chengpeng came home with a few of his brothers. As soon as they entered, they woke up the son who hadn't taken a nap at noon. Suhi thought it was about her and was about to go out, but then she heard it was about Chengpeng's sister. Damn, they are bullying our Cheng family because they think we don't have anyone. My sister at home never had to lift a finger, and now that she's married into their family, they didn't cherish her. Instead, they bullied my sister. They are really shameless. Chengpeng spat, "Wait and see if I don't beat him into the ground." Only then did Suhi understand. It turned out that her eldest sister-in-law was being bullied in her marital family, and she came home for reinforcement. Hearing Chengpeng's righteous indignation outside, Suhi felt like bursting into laughter. "Is your sister a woman, and I'm not? I was like this at home too. It's exactly because I got married far away, losing the support of my family, that you could bully me. The one who's most heartless is you. Let's go. Brothers, we will cripple him tonight. Whoever goes with me tonight, I'll give each 1,000 yuan tomorrow." Seeing that everyone was silent, Chengpeng sneered, "Wait, I'll go get the money now." As soon as he finished speaking, Chengpeng stormed into the inner room. "Give me the money," Chengpeng shouted at Suhi as soon as he entered the room. Suhi sneered, "Don't you know how much money we have at home? If I give you, how will we pay for the child's school fees?" "Shut up. My money, I'll spend it how I want. Can you solve any problem with money?" Do they lack your money? He thought Chengpeng was just a fool. In this era, who needs his 1,000 yuan? Plus, who would be willing to break the law? Peng, don't fight with your sister-in-law. Let's talk nicely. We're not short of your money. We should think long-term about this issue. Chengpeng's cousin advised. Hearing his cousin say that, Chengpeng felt embarrassed. Wasn't this implying that the money he was offering was insufficient? Hadn't he turned a blind eye to the life and death of his own sister? But he didn't dare to argue with a group of people. With that thought, Chengpeng slapped He, making her see stars. Chengpeng, you dare hit me, He said in disbelief. You're damn right. Don't you think I know about this morning's incident? If you dare disrespect my mother, I'll hit you, Chengpeng said and was about to strike once more, but the others quickly restrained him. He glared at Chengpeng, refusing to believe that the once considerate man had turned so ruthless. What are you staring at? Are you going to devour me? If not, call your brothers, come to beat me up. Let's see if they dare to do it. Chengpeng laughed, waved at the people next to him. A stinking woman like her deserves a beating. He laughed haha and ran into the kitchen. When she came back out, she was holding a kitchen knife. The others saw this and hurriedly ran over to grab the knife. He didn't stop because of anyone's interference. She waved the kitchen knife and sneered, "Whoever wants to die, come on. I won't hold back." After saying this, she sharply chopped it onto the wooden table next to her, cutting off a corner of it. This scared everyone and they didn't dare to move anymore. No one wanted to risk getting stabbed. You dare. Chengpeng became a bit scared as everyone stood still. He's eyes were filled with ruthlessness. She knew, with issues like domestic violence, once it starts, there's always a second time and it would never stop. Rather than suffer torment, she would rather fight to the death. Watch me if you dare. Chengpeng, I traveled 1,000 miles to marry you, to bear your child and keep your house. Instead of cherishing me, you treated me like this. If I don't kill you, I won't rest. Saying this, He chopped again onto the side of the television. The television broke along with her words. She swore she was definitely going to swipe Chengpeng with the knife to let him know she wasn't easy to mess with. Mom, her son's timid voice came, dispersing He's hatred. Seeing He's gaze cool down, Chengpeng quickly called out, "What? Do you want your son to witness his mom killing his dad? Do you have a conscience? He, you bitch. Put down the knife." He's mother-in-law's voice came from behind her. "Damn you, marrying you and hitting you, what's the big deal? If you dare touch my son, I will have somebody kill you. You bitch raised by a bitch. Son, don't be afraid. She dares not." The more her mother-in-law cursed, the more unbearable it became. He felt like she was nearly losing her mind with anger. She pointed the knife forward. "Whoever dares to stop me, I'll kill. I won't show mercy. If I have to, I'll go down fighting. You old hag should be run over by a car, so you don't cause disasters in this world. He, if you dare touch my mom, I'll kill you." Chengpeng shouted, seeing He waving the knife towards his mother. Caught between both sides, He felt that her entire life was just unfortunate and worse than death. No one saw how came rushing over. He's 8-year-old son suddenly ran out from behind his father, grabbed He's knife, turned and without hesitation, stabbed Chengpeng's foot hard. Chengpeng screamed, blood pooling at his feet. Chengpeng's mother froze. Chengpeng froze. Everyone froze. Even He froze. Chengpeng looked at his son laying at his feet, in disbelief. "Son, what are you doing?" His son's childish voice rang out, "Chengpeng, if you dare touch my mom, I'll kill your entire family." One sentence and everyone in the room froze. Hao stood up, the knife in his hand was pointed at his grandmother. "Grandma, starting today, if you scold my mom, I'll cut you with this knife." After he said this, he stared at his father, the despair and anger in his eyes shocking everyone. After a while, the knife fell, the 8-year-old child softened and then passed out. He felt her heart was about to break. Looking at her fallen son, her heart felt like a tempest. She tightly hugged her son, holding back her tears. "Son, mom's here. Mom's here." Ignoring the pain in his foot, Chengpeng shouted, "Call for a doctor. Quick, look at my son." After he finished speaking, Chengpeng's mother staggeringly walked out, still in shock. Chengpeng looked at his son on the floor and finally realized that he had inadvertently hurt the person he loved the most. Chengpeng trembled. wanting to go over, but Suhi suddenly turned around. If you dare take one more step, I'll cripple your other foot too. Chengpeng's foot dared not move again. A large group of people came to Chengpeng's house one evening half a month later. This group spoke with a dialect indicative of Suhi's hometown. Each of them were armed with iron rods, smashing everything in Chengpeng's house: pots, pans, cabinets, and furniture, no exceptions. The loud noises echoed throughout the entire village. It was said, not a single person stood up to help him. Chengpeng's mother was so frightened she hid in her little room, not daring to make a sound. Not only that, but the next day, Chengpeng's mother dug out her life savings and refurbished the entire house for her son and daughter-in-law, replacing all the furniture and appliances with the newest ones. Suhi looked at her son, who was muttering in his sleep. Tears silently slid down her face. Why? Why did you do this to Mom, Dad? I don't want a family like this. Suhi spoke to Chengpeng, who was standing behind her. For the sake of our child, I'll give you one more chance. Ever since then, the villagers often saw Chengpeng limping on his way to and from work, limping while doing chores, limping while playing with his son. Whenever Suhi called him, he would hurriedly limp over. And Suhi, in the house, looking at her son running towards her from a distance with a bright smile on his face, felt that with a son like him, she had no regrets in her life.